March 1944. Ramstein Air Base, somewhere in the English countryside, where the cold bit harder than any German bullet. The mess hall smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. I stood there, spatula in hand, watching pilots wolf down powdered eggs that tasted like cardboard mixed with regret. My name is Jack Sullivan, 26 years old, trained chef from Boston, now reduced to army cook. While other men flew into glory, I scraped pans and peeled potatoes. The irony wasn't lost on me. Before the war, I ran a small restaurant in the North End. Real pasta, fresh bread, sauces that made grown men cry. Now I served slop to heroes who might not live to see dinner. The pilots barely looked at me. Why would they? I was invisible. Just another support guy in green fatigues, keeping the war machine fed while they risked everything above the clouds. Lieutenant Charlie Morrison was different though. Red-haired kid from Iowa. Couldn't have been more than 22. He always said thanks. Always asked how I was doing. That morning, he sat alone at the corner table, staring at a photograph. His hands trembled slightly. "You okay, Lieutenant?" I asked, refilling his coffee. He looked up, forcing a smile. "Third mission over Germany today, Sullivan. Deep penetration run. We're escorting bombers all the way to Berlin." I whistled low. "That's what, 1,500 miles round trip?" His smile faded. "Our Mustangs can't make it that far. We have to turn back around Stuttgart. Leave the bombers on their own for the final leg." He folded the photograph carefully. It was a blonde girl, pretty smile, standing in a cornfield. His girl back home, I guessed. Every time we turn back, those boys get slaughtered by German fighters. Every single time. The weight of his words hit me. I'd heard the numbers. Bombers limping back with half their crew dead. Some never returned at all. And our best fighter plane, the P-51 Mustang, magnificent as it was, simply didn't have the range. That afternoon, I was alone in the maintenance hangar. I'd volunteered to help organize supplies, anything to feel useful. The mechanics were working on a Mustang, panels open, revealing the mechanical guts of the beast. Beautiful machine. Sleek, deadly powerful. "Hey Cookie, hand me that torque wrench," one of the mechanics yelled. I hated that nickname, but I grabbed the tool. As I approached, I overheard Chief Mechanic Roberts arguing with another officer. "The fuel tanks are maxed out. We can't add more weight. The aerodynamics are already perfect. There's no solution here." The officer slammed his fist against the fuselage. "Then we keep sending bombers to die. We need another 200 miles, Roberts. 200 miles would change everything." I stood there, holding that wrench, staring at the Mustang's smooth aluminum skin. Something clicked in my brain. Something absurd. Something that made absolutely no sense, yet somehow did. Back in Boston, I used to prepare duck confit. You know what makes that dish work? Fat. Pure rendered fat, brushed onto the skin before cooking. Creates this incredible seal, keeps moisture in, reduces friction in the pan. Friction. I looked at the Mustang's surface. Then at the grease buckets the mechanics used. Then back at the plane. My heart started racing. What if? No, that was crazy. I was just a cook. What did I know about aerodynamics? About fighter planes? About physics? But the thought wouldn't leave me alone. Festered. It grew. Consumed me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, doing calculations in my head that I had no business doing. Friction equals drag. Drag equals fuel consumption. Reduce friction, reduce drag, reduce fuel consumption, increase range. Could something as stupid as grease actually work? The other cooks were snoring around me. Outside, I heard the distant rumble of bombers returning from the day's mission. Fewer engines than had left that morning. Always fewer. Charlie Morrison's face flashed in my mind. That photograph of his girl. Those trembling hands. I made a decision that would either make me a hero or the biggest fool on the base. Tomorrow I was going to talk to Chief Roberts. Tomorrow I was going to suggest something absolutely absurd. The morning briefing felt different. Colonel Matthews stood at the front, his face carved from stone. 18 bombers lost yesterday. 18. 180 men who kissed their families goodbye and never came home. I found Chief Roberts in the hangar, elbow deep in an engine. He was a mountain of a man from Texas, all grease and expertise, respected by everyone, intimidating as hell. "Chief, I need to talk to you." He didn't look up. "I'm busy, Cookie. Whatever it is, take it to supply." My throat went dry. "It's about the Mustangs. About range." Now he looked up. His eyes narrowed. "You're a cook. What do you know about range?" This was it. The moment I either spoke up or walked away forever. I thought about Charlie Morrison. About that photograph. About all those boys burning over Germany. "I know about friction," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "In cooking, we reduce friction to improve efficiency. Fat, oil, grease, they create a barrier. Less resistance means less energy wasted." Roberts wiped his hands on a rag, his expression unreadable. "You suggesting we cook the damn planes?" A few mechanics nearby started laughing. My face burned hot. "I'm suggesting we coat them. A thin layer of grease on the fuselage. It could reduce air friction, reduce drag, improve fuel efficiency. Maybe enough to add those extra miles you need." The laughter got louder. Roberts stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You want to grease up $1 million fighter plane like it's a frying pan? Get out of my hangar." "But Chief, out." I stumbled backward, humiliation washing over me like ice water. The mechanics were doubled over now, slapping their knees. "Cookie thinks he's an engineer. Someone go get him a slide rule and an apron." I ran out of that hangar like a coward. My ears burned. My chest felt tight. Behind me, the laughter followed like ghosts. That evening, I served dinner in silence. Head down. Invisible again. Charlie Morrison came through the line, but I couldn't meet his eyes. "Sullivan? You all right, buddy?" "I'm fine, Lieutenant." But I wasn't fine. I felt like a fool. An arrogant, stupid fool who overstepped so far I might as well have walked into the propeller. What was I thinking? I was a cook. Just a cook. My job was feeding people, not solving engineering problems that actual educated men couldn't crack. That night, another mission briefed. Another deep penetration run. Another guarantee that bombers would fly alone into the killing zone. I lay in my bunk, staring at the darkness, listening to the pre-dawn rumble of Mustangs taking off. Charlie Morrison was up there somewhere, and I'd done nothing. Worse than nothing. I'd made myself a laughingstock. The shame ate at me like acid. 3 days passed. 3 days of whispers and smirks. Cookie the engineer. Cookie the genius. I kept my head down, did my job, tried to disappear. Then Lieutenant Morrison didn't come back. His Mustang took hits over France. Engine fire. He bailed out, parachuted into occupied territory. Missing in action, they said. Probably captured. Probably dead. I stared at his empty seat in the mess hall. The seat where he always sat. Where he always said thanks. Where he showed me that photograph of his girl in the cornfield. Something broke inside me. That afternoon, I marched back to the hangar. Roberts was there, supervising repairs on a damaged Mustang. When he saw me, his jaw tightened. "I told you to stay out of here, Cookie. I'm not leaving until you listen. Please." He stepped toward me, towering. I had 30 seconds before he physically threw me out. The words tumbled out fast. In Boston, I worked with thermodynamics every day. Heat transfer, surface tension, molecular adhesion. A perfectly seared steak works because fat molecules fill microscopic gaps in the meat, creating a hydrophobic barrier. The Mustang's aluminum skin has microscopic imperfections. Air catches in those gaps, creates turbulence, increases drag. A thin coat of temperature-stable grease could fill those imperfections, create a smoother surface, reduce parasitic drag by even 2%. 2% fuel savings over a 1,500-mile mission could mean 20 to 30 extra miles. Maybe more. Roberts said nothing, just stared. "Test it," I begged. "One plane, one test flight. If I'm wrong, I'll never speak again. But if I'm right, Chief, we could bring those boys home. Why do you care so much?" He finally asked, his voice quieter. "You're just a cook. Charlie Morrison is missing because his Mustang couldn't go far enough. I'm tired of being useless. I'm tired of watching good men die when maybe, just maybe, I can do something about it. The hangar fell silent. Every mechanic had stopped working. Roberts studied my face for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He nodded slowly. We've got a test bird, scheduled for routine flight checks tomorrow. He pointed at me. You're going to prep her yourself. You're going to apply whatever crazy grease formula you think will work. And if that plane crashes, Cookie, it's on you. My hands started shaking. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. If you're watching this and you believe in people who refuse to give up, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next, nobody saw coming. That night, I didn't sleep. I worked in the hangar with 2 mechanics Roberts assigned me. We cleaned that Mustang until she gleamed. Then, using a specific blend of high-temperature aviation grease mixed with graphite powder, we applied the thinnest possible coat to the entire fuselage. Smooth, uniform, perfect. Tomorrow, we'd know if a cook from Boston was a genius or a fool. Dawn broke cold and gray. The test Mustang sat on the runway, her greased skin catching the early light differently. She looked almost wet, like a seal emerging from dark water. Major Tom Bridger would fly her. Veteran pilot, 3 years of combat, 0 tolerance for nonsense. He walked around the plane twice, running his hand along the fuselage. Feels slippery, he said, eyebrows raised. What the hell did you do to my bird? Cookie? Just trust me, sir. He climbed into the cockpit. Robert stood beside me, arms crossed, face unreadable. Around us, a crowd had gathered. Word spreads fast on a base. Everyone wanted to see if the cook's crazy idea would work or if we just ruined a perfectly good fighter. The Merlin engine roared to life. That beautiful, powerful sound that meant freedom and death all at once. Bridger taxied, then opened the throttle. The Mustang leaped forward and lifted into the sky like she weighed nothing. He's climbing faster, Roberts muttered, checking his stopwatch. Clock him at 5,000 feet. 2 seconds quicker than standard. My heart hammered against my ribs. For 40 minutes, Bridger put that plane through every maneuver. Dives, climbs, combat rolls, maximum speed runs. We stood there watching, waiting, barely breathing. When he landed, Bridger didn't taxi to the normal spot. He came straight to us, shut down the engine, and climbed out fast. His face was unreadable. Then he broke into the biggest grin I'd ever seen. I don't know what black magic you pulled, Sullivan, but that bird flew like she was touched by God himself. Smoother, faster, less engine strain at cruising speed. He looked at Roberts. Tom, I'm telling you, fuel consumption dropped noticeably. I could feel it. This works. The crowd erupted. Mechanics rushed forward, asking questions, examining the coating, running their hands along the surface. Roberts grabbed my shoulder so hard it hurt. We need to coat every Mustang on this base. Now, the next 72 hours were chaos. Every available man worked around the clock. We developed an assembly line process. Clean, prep, coat, cure. Plane after plane transformed under our hands. I taught mechanics my technique, showed them the exact mixture, the application method, the drying time. Colonel Matthews himself came to the hangar, watched us work. He pulled me aside. Son, if this works in combat, you just saved more lives than most soldiers ever will. And you did it with grease and guts. On the 4th day, the 357th Fighter Group launched a deep penetration escort mission to Berlin. Every Mustang wore the new coating. Charlie Morrison's squadron. His friends. His brothers in arms. They flew deeper into Germany than any American fighter had gone before. Protected the bombers all the way to target. All the way back. Not a single bomber was lost. Every Mustang returned home. The celebration in the mess hall that night was unlike anything I'd witnessed. Pilots bought me drinks I didn't want. Mechanics shook my hand until it hurt. Colonel Matthews made a toast in my honor. But I couldn't celebrate. Not yet. Charlie Morrison was still missing. 2 weeks later, I was peeling potatoes when Roberts burst into the kitchen. His face was flushed, eyes bright. Sullivan, drop that knife and get to the infirmary. Now. My stomach dropped. What happened? Just move. I ran across the base, heart pounding, scenarios racing through my mind. When I pushed through the infirmary doors, I saw him. Charlie Morrison. Thin, bruised, bandaged, but alive. Sitting on a cot, grinning like an idiot. Sullivan. He tried to stand but winced. Easy there, I said, rushing over. What? How? French resistance found me. Hid me in a barn for 3 weeks. Fed me, kept me safe, smuggled me back across the lines. He grabbed my arm with surprising strength. I heard what you did. The grease trick. They're calling you a hero. I'm just a cook, Charlie. No. His voice cracked. You're the reason my buddies made it home yesterday. You're the reason families aren't getting death telegrams. You saved them, Jack. You actually saved them. I felt something wet on my face. Realized I was crying. The weight I'd been carrying, the fear, the humiliation, the desperate need to matter, it all came pouring out. Roberts stepped into the room, clearing his throat. Sullivan, there's someone here to see you. A general walked in, stars on his collar. Behind him, 3 other officers I didn't recognize. Sergeant Sullivan, the general said formally. By order of the United States Army Air Forces, you are hereby commended for extraordinary innovation under combat conditions. Your grease coating technique has been designated for immediate implementation across all P-51 Mustang squadrons in the European theater of operations. He handed me a folder. Inside were technical drawings, chemical formulas, production orders. My idea, now official military doctrine. The general continued. Early estimates suggest your innovation will extend fighter range by an average of 215 miles, fundamentally altering the strategic bombing campaign. You've changed the course of this war, son. I couldn't speak, couldn't process it. Me, Jack Sullivan, Boston cook, changed the war. Charlie Morrison stood up, saluted me sloppily. His eyes were wet too. To the cook who gave us wings. The room erupted in applause. Real, genuine, thunderous applause. For the first time since putting on this uniform, I felt like I mattered. Like I belonged. Like I was exactly where I needed to be. That night, I wrote a letter to my mother in Boston. Told her I was doing okay. Told her I'd found my purpose. Told her that sometimes the most important contributions come from the most unexpected places. I sealed the envelope and smiled. September 1945. Boston, Massachusetts. The war was over. Germany defeated. Japan surrendered. The world was trying to remember what peace felt like. I stood outside my old restaurant in the North End, keys in hand. The building looked smaller than I remembered. Weathered, but still standing. Like all of us who made it home. Jack Sullivan. I turned. Charlie Morrison walked toward me, civilian clothes, arm around that blonde girl from the photograph. They'd gotten married 2 months after he returned stateside. She was pregnant now, glowing with it. Charlie. I clasped his hand. What are you doing in Boston? Honeymoon trip. Had to look up the man who saved my life. He gestured at the restaurant. You reopening? Next week. Sullivan's Italian kitchen, just like before. Except now people actually know my name. He laughed. That they do. You know they're still using your grease technique? Every fighter plane in the Air Force. They're calling it the Sullivan coating in the technical manuals. I shook my head, smiling. Still can't believe that worked. His wife touched my arm gently. My husband tells everyone about you. About how a cook changed everything. Thank you for bringing him home to me. The gratitude in her eyes made my throat tight. Over the next months, the restaurant thrived. Veterans came from across New England just to eat at Cookie Sullivan's place. They'd shake my hand, share war stories, thank me for things I still didn't feel worthy of. Roberts visited once, drove all the way from Texas. We spent an evening drinking whiskey, laughing about that first conversation in the hangar when he thought I was insane. You were insane, he said, refilling our glasses. But you were right. That's the difference between crazy and genius. Being right. In 1947, I received a letter from the Air Force. They were establishing an innovation program, encouraging enlisted men from all specialties to contribute ideas. They wanted me to speak at the inauguration. I stood at that podium, looking at hundreds of faces, and told them the truth. I'm not special. I'm not educated. I'm just a cook who refused to stay silent when I saw a problem. Every single person here has knowledge, has perspective, has something valuable to offer. Don't ever think you're too small, too unimportant, or too invisible to make a difference. Because sometimes, the solution everyone's looking for comes from the most unexpected person in the room. The applause was deafening. Today, I'm 78 years old. The restaurant is run by my grandson now. But on the wall hangs a framed letter from the Air Force, a photograph of a P-51 Mustang, and a small jar of grease labeled the day everything changed. Sometimes students interview me for history projects. They always ask the same question. How did you know it would work? I tell them honestly, but I knew I had to try.